With the duplicate charts, Stormy just recently sent out an email that had a lot of good info on it. On each of the tables, I put a packet together. There's 3 key points that I bolded and underlined for you guys. The first one is when you're looking up a patient, the any key, which I'm going to show you in case some of you don't know where it's at in both EMR and PM. If you click that and change it to anytime you're looking up a patient by their birth date, it'll show you if they're inactive or not, whether they've ever been to Sound Family Medicine. That's the first really big one.
Can I say something to that? I finally talked to GE, and I guess I should have probably talked to you before this, but I forget who at GE I asked about that. And so one caution about that is when you click down to any, if the patient is inactive, you're only going to know they're inactive by the inactive button. And so that's why they default to active. Because then whatever you're doing, so if a patient has been discharged, we typically then inactivate them, right? After a certain amount of time, we inactivate them. And so it's a little bit easier than to take a patient that has been inactivated and make them active again without even knowing. If you're not reading the notes. So we have to pay attention to those alert notes because that's always in there. But that's the
right?
Caution. What?
Inactive, it tells you inactive on the
Yeah, there's a button, I forget where exactly it is, and hopefully we can open it up. But so that's something to be cautious of.
The second thing is birthday. I see a lot of people looking up patients by their last name. Yes, it does work, but also, especially with new babies, they have different last names. Parents aren't married. It's always going to go under the mother. They call and say, I need to make an appointment for my newborn, and they say, totally different last name. Nobody sees them because they're not looking for it. Not looking for a different name. If you look them up by the birthday, it'll pull everybody up, and a lot of times you get the same first name, different last name. Same address, but something is a little off.
I can barely hear you again. I'm really old.
I think the hand might be down. Didn't IT say that they were going to take it down tonight?
Not till 9, they said.
Oh, never mind.
Not till 9 tonight.
So if we just follow those few things when we're scheduling appointments, looking up patients, it'll help stop the dupe charts, because it's always going to happen. Something's always going to get missed. We're humans. We all make mistakes. But if we check the birthday, check any or inactive to see if they're there, because they haven't paid a bill and now they're saying they have a different last name to come back, it's one of the ways that we can lessen Stormy's list that she goes through to fix. Same thing with dupe guarantors. If you check to see who's the guarantor on this person, might not be the same as the other family member. So it's a good idea to try and keep them all together so that we don't have that same problem.
Sorry.
I don't think you're going to be able to access it. I thought it was tonight at
Yeah,
7 p.m.
it is.
7 p.m.
Yeah, but they said not
p.m.
until 9 p.m., but they may have taken it down early.
Oh, I'm skipping the log.
In the PM, the drop down is on the upper left-hand side right before you get to the main screen that will list all the patients with that birthday. You just select any or inactive so that we can now see the inactive too. In EMR, when it pulls up the screen and you hit F3, it's a check mark. You have to uncheck the box in order for it to search for inactive, anybody. And EMR, sometimes it'll save it as a preference to pull it up that way. Sometimes it doesn't. It kind of goes back and forth and changes it on its own. But there's the two.
It's going to be a little while. Did we have something else on the agenda while we're waiting to, we can get that?
OTC, with your batches, we're still having issues with posting to the wrong account for the patients. A lot of that is posting happening after the time of service. I know in the new P&P that everybody signed, it says you post at the time of service before the patient walks away from the desk and you hand them a receipt. If that's not happening and you're going back later to try and post their payment and it ends up on the wrong count, causes problems for the billers in the back office to try and figure out where that money went, or for Kim, who does OTC every morning. So time of service before the patient walks away from the desk, and hit the print button to get them their receipt. That way you know you did it to the right person's account, and you have the time to write their ID number on the top of the credit card slip, if that's how they paid, or the check slip.
Okay, so it defaults to active right here. Whoops. And if you say any there, it'll pull up active or inactive. And then if you go into, so here's where your alert note for collections would be. And,
On the far right hand side,
oh, right there.
yep, that's where it'll tell you if a patient's active with us or inactive. So the ones that are discharged from the clinic, but they're trying to come back, if you pull them up because you find them under the Any tab and then you see that, that's a red flag that says something's off. And that's when you need to do a little more digging before you schedule an appointment for them.
So if they come in and they pay and they're inactive because they've been discharged, do we go in and click on the inactive there, or do we just take out the notes?
Well, it has to be.
Only perm discharged or inactivated.
Oh, permanent?
When they're temporary, they stay active.
Right.
Didn't we have an appointment with a
Right.
permanent discharge the other day?
So, in theory, only permanent discharges to be inactive.
I would say to look first under active and then look under any. And you're doing the whole date of birth, right? So what you're trying to do is verify that this patient has not been here before.
But there are some inactives that they're inactive because, not just because of their balance, but they be requested to be inactive. I've had some of those where they don't want my SFMs anymore, so I'll like text message or email medical records and say this patient does not want to be a patient of sound plumbing medicine. And so they mark them as inactive.
On their
So you
own
have to
free,
just go-
their own free will, right?
Yes. But I'm
Then-
just saying it's going to come up inactive for them as well. So
The pop-up notes are going to stay that the collectors put in or that anybody puts in, whether they're inactive or active. Those will always be there as long as nobody takes them out. So if they are inactive because of non-payment or permanent discharge, we'll have our notes still. So if a patient chooses to change from sound and they're inactive because that's what they want, definitely, if they want to come back, we can change it. And it's just the click of a button, not creating a whole nother chart.
Beth?
There was a time where we did a run. It was an active report that looked for all patients seen within the last 3 years, and if they hadn't been, we inactivated them. So you're going to see some like that. But also, if the patient's been discharged, in addition to those alert notes, if you go under the additional tab, you'll see the MRN number also says discharged. So that's one other way to verify.
So I would just say that if you're dealing with a patient for whatever reason that it is inactive, you need to go and really research why. Because if we discharge them if we permanently discharge them, we don't want to see them without first getting approval.
Right, because when we do that, we reestablish.
We reestablish care.
And we have to go through that 30-day process again.
Right.
But they're also they've gone inactive because let's say they haven't been to the clinic in 4 years.
That's what Beth just said. We ran through and patients that hadn't been here for 3 years or beyond, were inactivated.
Right, but it wasn't because of financial reasons.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Research why they're inactive. If you are making a patient active that is currently inactive, first we will come hunt you down and ask you why. But no, seriously, really look to see if the patient has been discharged by us, because we don't want to reestablish care with those patients. Unknowingly, especially. Go ahead.
I just had a patient today that came in, and I looked for them, didn't find them under active. Asked the patient, hey, so it's been a while since we've seen you. And, I was just here the other day. Checked under inactive, found the patient. The patient had just been seen in April. There was no alert notes, there was no financial notes as far as anything like that. So they were just seen in April, they were inactive today, and then in EMR, they were still active. And on that same example, I had another one just in the last couple of days that, and this is one thing for front office that gets really confusing, is I've got no financial notes as far as, temp discharge, whatever, in centricity, but I go into EMR,
And they're still there.
and they're still there. So that's two examples. But the first one, why, if they were just seen in April, other than, the only thing I could think of is that whoever checked them in last didn't change it to active. Maybe they found them under inactive,
That could be.
registered them, and then didn't change it to active.
I would say when you find something that is odd like that, feel free to email me or the QI department, because it's worth a second eyeball taking a look and seeing if the system has done something, or human error, and we need to do some retraining. It's worth looking into.
A lot of times what those have turned out to be were duplicate charts that were either merged in one system and not the other, or inactivated in one and not the other. Those notes might have been made on the inactive account. I don't know if you looked in there, but we're finding kind of mismatching that way where it's been partially corrected and not fully. So we need to know about that in medical records too, if there's more than one chart.
So my second question would be, as a front office staff, if I've got somebody who's, say there's notes in there, balance, yada, 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 temp discharge because of balance, there's nothing in centricity, but there's still notes in EMR, do I go after, do I go off of centricity, or do I go after, off of EMR?
Collectors, I'm thinking they would go off of PM, because I'm assuming we just missed the step of pulling it out of EMR. Correct?
As front
what I
office, that's what I've done, because that's what I've been told by collectors. So if you see notes, and it's come up since I've switched to back office, I have them coming to me saying, hey, it still says temp discharge. Well, I checked PM and everything's taken out of PM and they're good to go there. So I assume to them that, no, they're good to go, it was just missed. We can take it out and correct it so that it doesn't come up again.
So the answer would be, if it shows
Fix it.
temp discharge in one or the other, still needs to be verified by the collectors,
No, I would say if it's not in the PM.
which centricity, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If it's not, but it's in the EMR,
Take it out.
then take it out. Maybe shoot them an email, just
Yeah.
FYI. But if it's the opposite,
Definitely
Then
check.
I would check with collectors.
So
Is it-
centricity rules over
correct?
EMR.
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Yes. Yeah, because they work out of centricity.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so that's where it is in PM. In EMR, when you pull it up, it's just to unclick the button and it'll look up any. So moving on with OTC, highlighting your totals on your calculator tape and then highlighting them on the right-hand side of your deposit slip. When you do that, according to the checklist, you're saying that your numbers match. That's what it says. Numbers aren't matching. So before you highlight, make sure that you have the same numbers on both pieces of paper, because it's an error. It's an error on you. Settlement reports from the credit card and check machine need to have your floor name on them. The date's already on there, so you can highlight it. Just put the floor name. Not so much your name, but where it came from. Lord forbid if they all got mixed up on the floor, we wouldn't know where it came from for the day. So just where your location on the top. Voided credit card and check slips. We all know not to use the refund key anymore. If you void them, if you void a credit card or check slip, you are responsible for that slip in your batch with your other credit card slips, not in with the other closing stuff. It actually goes with your batch. And say Eric voided a slip that I posted on my account, I'm already gone for the day, he has to put a negative or put a credit on that patient's account and then put that slip in with his batch, and that'll tell Kim where it connects at for OTC to match. Does that make sense? I'm assuming yes.
Lori, can I just add something to the voiding? Do not void debit cards. You'll have debit. Don't give the patient the option. Do you want to run this as credit or as a debit, like they very often ask you at the store? Don't give them the option. It will automatically not run as a credit if it's a debit only PIN code, PIN-based card. If that's the case and you did make an error and you need to void it, you cannot void it. You will have to call merchant services. They then have to reset the machine. It has happened twice in the last month or so, and it turned into like a really, really long process. Because according to the patient, they were told it was refunded. It never did. So it just sits in our account, and we're not aware. The patient doesn't get their money, so just be really careful with that.
With the debit cards,
On the other hand, you collected money.
With most debit cards, they come with the Visa MasterCard logo now. My personal experience is, unless it does not have that logo, I do not give the patient a choice. I have them sign. I don't offer the PIN pad. I hide it because even when we're posting those payments, there is not a debit card option to post to. So ultimately, it shouldn't be an option to use.
And there's no name on the receipt.
Yeah, there's no way to track who it went to. If you didn't post it, you're really looking through everyone.
We don't have that option. You know, we're taking payments over the phone.
It's all credit.
It's all, yeah. Even though the patient often, I had two today that said, do you take debit cards? I'm like, well, if that's your only option.
But
well,
a lot of times
we
they'll
might have to
ask
do it.
that, and then you can just say, is it all right if I run it as credit?
Right.
And they say, oh yeah, sure.
It's I just say as long as that has a
Visa MasterCard logo on it.
Right.
I mean,
Okay,
If they say anything, I mean,
So the gist of it is, it's okay to take the debit if that's all they have. We prefer credit, and we can't do a void on debit.
Just real quick, Lori, this is probably more directed to you. After 3.5 years of being here, twice in the last month I've ran a process. I think it's something that's coming up more and more. The first patient I had was from Australia. You know, I'm pretty old school, but they had they had like 2 or 3 cards, and there's something special about them. Kevin, help me out on this. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
What was it? What was it called? What'd they have? It was some chip. Yeah, there you
It
go.
was, yeah.
I don't know how to process it.
Strip, right.
those are local too. Yeah.
And I just got another one the other day, and people are going to them because of the security of them, I'm thinking.
We got one of those like 2 years ago, and we ran it in the chip reader and on the machine, and it worked just fine.
It acts like a credit card?
Yeah, it worked perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Did you try it?
Somebody's got to show me how to run a chip reader.
We tried, and the machines had the capability, but we just couldn't figure it out at the time, and I don't know if it was because it was an Australian chip.
Well,
Lisa, do you have an answer? Our machines should be able to run them?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I don't know this one. Said he ran one and can show Eric how to do it.
Okay.
The one thing that I will say real quick is that with Athena, we will be getting new machines. And so, my machines that we currently have will be different in a few months.
The credit card one is the one that just attaches to the monitor and you swipe it right there, right? And then the check machine is different?
Likely, yes. Our machines may be compatible, we're not sure yet, we're still researching that. However, the technology is old enough that it makes sense to look at
Replace
them
it.
for all the machines.
This is really slow.
Sorry, Laura.
You're up. No, you're fine.
Is Stormy up? Stormy's up? Do we have? Oh, no? Oh, we have like 1 minute.
With this one, for accountability, Deanna's gonna speak.
Where am I going?
Something's just right.
That check mark is what you're gonna uncheck to search for any patient. And that's all you have to do with EMR.
See it, Eric?
What was that?
Do we need the EMR open for anybody else's stuff? Because it takes about 10 minutes to open. So.
No, we're good. We're good.
So accountability, I'm assuming you're talking about OTC accountability as opposed
Yes.
to all other forms of accountability. For me, the mantra is the same, and that is that y'all have a job to do, we all have a job to do, and we got to do it accountably. So for the last few months, I've been sending out, or the last few, well, I don't know how, but I've been sending out the OTC, reconciliation. Kevin puts it together for me, and I send it out, and I've been letting those of you who are struggling a little bit know about that, and we're going to start taking a verbal to a written. So I need you guys to, if you have any questions and you don't know how to do what you're supposed to do, please let your supervisor know so we can do some retraining. Otherwise, we're going to start holding y'all accountable like we're supposed to.
On a positive note, the last few months, Carol and I, working balancing, have noticed how much easier it's been. I don't know where that all stems from,
Yeah.
that response, and that but I want you to know it's been very noticeable
Yay.
how timely it is and how much more efficient the system is running right now. So whoever, whether it's Kim or however it's working, that is fantastic.
No, I agree. I think the checklist, you guys are doing a great job. I think the biggest errors I've seen that I have to write on is paperwork stuff, where you guys are highlighting wrong, and I know it seems like this small little thing, but the fact that it's not my only job, and Billy can attest to this. We only have so much time in the morning to do it. It helps us a ton. And Stormy too, like just seeing all those numbers highlighted, it helps. It helps in months and everything. So you guys are doing a good job.
And so, we all want to take care of each other. So that the more that we can do and that's why we put this policy together and why we've educated and now why we're going to hold you accountable, because it helps someone else down the line do their job better. Okay? So I just, focus, guys. If you need additional training, if you just don't get it, or if you think it should be done differently, let's go ahead and let me know that, and we'll see what we can do to change it. So it makes it simpler for you. We've run through a bunch of revisions on the process already. We can do it again if we need to. But as long as it's working and makes everyone's jobs easier, that's what we're shooting for.
We're done.
All right.
We're all done?